Not every car deserves to make it past the drawing board. Some should have been cancelled before a single wheel touched the ground. I'm not only talking about ugly cars, some cars don't make sense, some were a sales flop, and others, they were just shit. I mean, can you believe that cars like the PT Cruiser actually made it past multiple rounds of design and still came out looking like that? And then it even went on to sell for 10 years? Yeah, how the hell did that happen? In America it actually did well. Don't know what possessed you lot to buy these. Luckily in the UK it didn't sell much, so we don't see too many of them on the roads. Somebody out there was buying them though. 1.3 million PT Cruisers were sold over the years.
What?
The styling on these is obviously inspired by the 1930s, but the designers wanted to add a modern twist and focus on practicality, which ultimately gave it that dodgy shape. It could have been amazing if it was done right, but it had a bunch of underpowered engine options and that just made it a boring drive. Funnily enough though, there was a hot version called the PT Cruiser GT or the GT Cruiser, which had a turbocharged 2.4 litre inline 4 which was pushing up to 230 horsepower. It's actually half decent, but you still have to deal with the embarrassment of its ugly looks, the crappy interior, and the fact that it's a Chrysler. The PT Cruiser was so bad that it even made it onto the Time magazine's 50 worst cars of all time list, which is a real sign that this car should have never made it into production. Unlike the PT Cruiser, the Range Rover Evoke actually looks banging, especially in its higher spec versions, but since its release it's been known to be so unreliable that JLR shouldn't have even bothered releasing it. The 2 litre Ingenium engines that were offered in the Evokes are known for their timing chain and turbo issues. The gearboxes are also a common failure point. So it's not that bad, it's only the most important mechanical bits of the car. Anyway, as if that's not bad enough, the aircon and the sat-nav are also known for their electrical issues. It sounds like it's just bad news all around, aside from the looks. In the 13-ish years that this model has existed so far, it's already had multiple recalls for some huge problems. Fuel leaks in the engine bay, lack of steering control, and short circuits in the wiring harnesses. Bloody hell, who was building this car? The 3 blind mice? Over 770,000 of these sold worldwide. Buyers wanted a cheaper, smaller luxury SUV, but they got nothing but headache. If you do a quick Google search, you see hordes of people complaining about the crap ton of issues, the long wait time for parts. To be honest though, at this point, JLR could slap a Range Rover badge on a PT Cruiser and it'd still sell like hotcakes. While you're here, subscribe for more of these videos. Anyway, next up is the Hummer H2. It's a huge military-inspired SUV, but not that much about it is legit. It lacks power, it weighs almost 3 tons, and it gets only about 10 miles per gallon thanks to being shaped like a fridge. The looks of it aren't completely terrible. In a toned down colour with no chrome trims, it actually looks quite cool. The military Humvee that inspired it has a bunch of exterior bits and pieces that are all functional. The Hummer H2 copies those bits and pieces, but none of them are functional. All of them are just fake plastic. The bonnet straps are fake and so are the inflators on the wheels. It's all just there to make the H2 look tough. It's the kind of car that you'd expect Lord Farquaad to be driving. It's a massive overcompensation. It's kind of like screaming, "I'm a manly man," at anyone that walks by. A yellow Hummer H2 was actually used in a movie, Never Back Down, literally for this reason. So maybe they're part of the reason why the H2 gives this impression. I don't know. Anyways, 150,000 of these were sold before the plug was pulled. And I wonder what goes through someone's mind to think, you know, I don't want a Mercedes GL, I don't want an X5, I don't want a Q7, an Escalade, or even a Dodge Durango. Nah, give me a Hummer H2. Can't be a mentally sane person. I like BMWs, so I'm quite sad I had to add one to this list, but this one has to be on here. The styling is dead and the proportions are all over the gaff. You might be thinking it can be saved by a good inline 6 engine, but nah mate, not today. This one's electric. It's the BMW iX. Now credit where it's due, the car has decent power and range figures on the higher end, although being that it's an EV, the range will massively depend on your driving style, the weather, what you ate for breakfast, and a bunch of other factors. Power starts at 322 horsepower in the xDrive 40 and it shoots all the way up to 610 in the M60. That's all good and well, but I still can't get on with that bloated outer line exterior. The VP of BMW design, Damagoj Dukek, said, "We designed the BMW iX from the inside out. In the process, we took particular care to create a modern, warm and minimalist interior design with a very spacious feel." Yeah, you can kind of tell they designed it inside out. It looks like the body is shaped by the size of the interior in a weird way. And the styling doesn't match any other BMW aside from the huge front grille. none of the styling matches any other part of the car. Like the bottom doesn't match the top, the back doesn't match the front, none of it makes sense. The idea makes a lot of sense though. It's a big SUV to show their technological advancements in the EV space. The execution of it is just a bit higgy-hagger. They could have just electrified the X5 or the X7 and it would have landed hard because they're already established models and their styling ties in with the rest of the brand's lineup. But anyways, that's just my opinion. I can't afford one anyway. Onto a car that I can actually afford now, especially now that it's dirt cheap. In the early 2000s, BMW, Audi and Mercedes, they were doing well with their small saloon cars that were built for the masses. There were the 3 Series, the A4 and the C-Class. They were all doing pretty well, especially in getting the younger crowd interested with their sportier versions. Now Jaguar saw this happening and they decided that they wanted to get in on the action, but they decided that they wanted to save a bit of cash on the development costs. At the time, Jaguar were owned by Ford, so they slapped a Jaguar badge on a Ford Mondeo and they called it a day. But the people that knew the Jags, they didn't really want one of these because they could see through the Mondeo rebadge. If they wanted a Jag, it was for the cool styling, it was for the quality interior and the rear wheel drive with smooth power delivery. This car ticked none of those boxes. From its release, it looked outdated, and today it looks like the kind of car you'd see old guys with flat caps driving. Jaguar wanted it to help them appeal to younger drivers, and it definitely didn't do that. And in usual Jaguar fashion, it was unreliable too. It's L's all around for this model. They should have either done a much better job or they should have just binned it off before it was released. Now this next car, I'm gonna get hate for, but hear me out. Volkswagen makes some sick cars. The early 2000s was a wild time for them. They had a 5-litre diesel V10, they had 3.2-litre V6 hatchbacks, and there was a car for almost every segment, even the tiny 1-litre Lupo. But the car that I'm talking about was available way back in 2004 with heated, cooled, and massaging individual rear seats. You could walk into a VW dealership and drop 78 bags on this car. That's 130,000 today. It is of course the Volkswagen Feton. Inflation has wrecked this economy. How does 78,000 in 2004 turn to 130,000 today? But anyways, let's stay on track. 78k for a Volkswagen. Add the "you're mossa mad." The Feton was VW's luxury car, made to go up against the 7 Series or the S-Class. Imagine a Bentley, but with a VW badge. Now anyone with that kind of money to splash on a car would just buy an actual Bentley, especially considering a fully spec'd Feton would have costed you more than a Bentley Flying Spur at the time anyway. But the legendary Ferdinand Piëch, the chairman of VW at the time, and the man behind a lot of the sick cars that we got from that period, gave a one-line, simple instruction for the Feton. Build a car that can be driven all day at 300 kilometers per hour in 50 degrees heat while keeping the cabin at 22 degrees. But it was so over-engineered and so expensive and so out of place that as a VW, not many people wanted to buy it. The engine options are equally as ridiculous. On the lower end, there's a 3.2-litre V6 that you'll find across the VW range in other cars. The upper end, there's a mental 5-litre diesel V10 with 750 Newton meters of torque. And if diesel isn't your thing, there's a 6-litre W12 petrol with 420 horsepower. That probably gets less than 15 miles per gallon in real world driving. Most buyers, they saw this car, they saw the badge, and they thought, nah mate, I'd rather get an actual Bentley, so it was a sales flop in the UK and in the US. However, in China, the VW badge actually holds some weight. They see it as a luxury, so it did well over there. Anyways, that wraps up my list of cars that I think should have been cancelled. What others do you think I should have added to this list? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more videos.